A quiet residential street is bathed in the soft glow of night, setting a peaceful, lonely scene. In her simple room, a girl with black hair lies awake, scrolling endlessly on her phone under the moonlight. While her parents sleep nearby, her thoughts reveal a deep sense of frustration and hopelessness. She continues to stare at the glowing screen, lost in her thoughts in the dark room. Pop, a ghostly woman in a yellow sweater suddenly appears, cheerfully announcing she's here to look at your body. A second spirit, a girl with glasses and pigtails, materializes as the woman in yellow tells her to take a good look. The woman in yellow markets the girl's body to her client, suggesting it's a great option with potential for future remodeling. The girl with glasses asks if she will retain her consciousness, and the woman in yellow assures her it's like moving in while performing a scan. The girl finally confronts the spirits, demanding to know what they're doing, only to be asked if she wasn't offering her body. The spirit identifies the girl as Juin Jian and reveals her secret wish to die, which she's had every day for a year. The woman correctly deduces Juin's only hesitation. She doesn't want to hurt her loving parents. The woman introduces her client, a spirit named Runa Lee, who nervously waves hello. She explains that Runa Lee and her entire family died tragically in a car accident just days ago. Runa hesitantly accepts the body, saying she's in a hurry, prompting the woman to happily poof a contract into existence. Runa Lee's soul will possess Juin's body, and in exchange, Runa must care for Juin's parents. The deal's final term is revealed. Runa's ticket to heaven will be transferred to Juin, whose soul will ascend. A tearful Juin questions the deal, but the woman pressures her, reminding her this is the escape she wanted. With a flop, Juin surrenders, telling them to do whatever they want. She closes her eyes, resigning herself to finally being done with her depressing life. Instead of peaceful oblivion, she's greeted by a chaotic celestial scene and asks, "What?" A handsome, bare-chested angel appears before her, leaving her stammering in shock. "Tickle! Tickle!" The angel playfully torments Juin, who shrieks with laughter. The angel leans in, announcing it's time for the main event, making the bed creak and Juin panic. Pow! She lands a solid punch to his face, demanding to know what he's doing. He asks what she means by inappropriate, and she defensively stammers that she's just a student. The angel laughs, amused by her switching up the script, and wishes she'd warned him. Looking in the mirror, Juin sees her new appearance for the first time and shouts in shock. "Is that me?" She's astonished by her new face and slimmer body. The spirit of Runa Lee pops in, furious at being called old, and terrifies the new and improved Juin. Spirit Runa defensively boasts about her youth, stretching Juin's face as Juin finally stammers out her name in recognition. "What are you doing here?" Juin demands, only for Runa's spirit to complain she just wanted to blow off some steam. Ugh. In a flashback, the spirit of Runa Lee shouts for the broker lady, demanding an explanation. Pop! A suave man in a white suit and sunglasses materializes, casually addressing Runa Lee. The man introduces himself to a stunned Juin and Runa's spirit. He works for Heaven's Central Intelligence Agency. The agent questions Runa's spirit about a contract she signed 13 years ago, using her ticket to heaven as collateral. She confirms it. With a grim expression, the agent delivers the devastating news she's been scammed. Scammed, she asks in disbelief. As the agent explains, it was a typical soul real estate scam. The agent assures Juin that they are pursuing the criminal, and then turns to Runa's spirit, asking for her cooperation in the investigation. When the agent reveals the investigation will take about 108 days, Runa's spirit is utterly shocked. Juin vehemently refuses to give her improved life back, especially not for over 100 days. The agent pressures Runa's spirit, warning that if she doesn't cooperate now, they might never catch the scammer. He raises the stakes. Runa might never be able to return to Juin's body, leaving both girls shocked and frustrated. Runa's spirit confronts Juin, revealing a shocking truth. She has been secretly fixing Juin's life for the last 13 years. Runa explains that, thanks to her, Juin is now the head of a massive conglomerate, a scale her former self could never imagine. Runa instructs Juin to call her secretary, Shinha Min, and relay a very specific set of instructions. It's an emergency. All company operations are to be halted, and approvals postponed for the next 108 days. On the phone, Juin adds a personal note. If she starts acting weird, just ignore it. The final instruction to her secretary is clear. Find a trustworthy bodyguard and make sure they never leave her side. You listen. Runa's spirit warns Juin not to screw up the life she built, threatening her before she departs. Sometime later, a well-dressed Ms. Jian is escorted into a luxury car as her chauffeur announces their arrival. Ms. Jian gets out of the car, looking apprehensive as she takes in her new surroundings. Before a magnificent mansion, She thinks to herself that it looks more like a palace than a house. Creak. She approaches the towering, ornate double doors, which swing open to welcome her. Inside, an entire staff of maids and butlers bow in unison, formally greeting Madame Jian. Two maids immediately tend to her, offering a drawn bath and a wine and dessert platter, leaving Juin speechless. When another maid offers a Thai massage after her shower, Juin awkwardly asks if they plan to help her shower too. Flinch! One of the maids plucks a stray hair from Juin's shoulder, causing her to jump in surprise. Shudder. In response to her reaction, all the nearby maids freeze in absolute terror. Flop. The staff immediately prostrates themselves, apologizing profusely for the new maid's grievous error. A senior maid begs for forgiveness, explaining that the new maid is only a child of 19 and hasn't been properly trained yet. The senior maid turns and yells at the terrified girl, Bin Ru Chu, not to just sit there begging for forgiveness. Juin panics internally, wondering why everyone is reacting as if the girl is facing the death penalty for a stray hair and questioning if she was known for executing staff. Turning a corner, she finds her parents, who are surprised by her sudden appearance at the mansion. Mom Juin cries, rushing forward to embrace her mother, leaving both parents stunned. With tears in her eyes, Juin remarks on how old her parents have become, calculating their ages based on her new age of 30. She cheerfully asks her dad about a car he wanted, promising to get rid of his old one and buy it for him. Shocked, her father quivers, asking what he did to upset her and what's wrong with the car he already has. Her father tearfully begs to discuss it first, while Juin shakes him, reassuring him that she'll get him the car. In another room, her secretary Shin Ha-min briefs the entire household staff, announcing that Ms. Jian will be staying for 4 months. Shin Ha warns the staff to be understanding of any strange behavior from Ms. Jian and to ensure no word of it ever leaves the house. The staff looks on grimly, dreading the thought of 4 months with Madame Jian. Back in the office, Shin confirms to Juin that, as instructed, the company is in a maintenance phase with all approvals postponed for 100 days. Shinha adds that they are secretly hiring a personal bodyguard with an interview scheduled for tomorrow. As Shinhye turns to leave for the night, Juin calls out for her to wait a moment. Juin asks if Shinha is curious about her sudden change in behavior, but Shinha replies she's more concerned about being formally called Ms. Min instead of Shinha. Juin wonders aloud why everyone, especially her parents, seems to be walking on eggshells around her. When Juin asks why she works for her, Shinha bluntly states that Juin pays better than any other employer. Gulp. Realizing the scale of her new life, Juin asks how she became the boss of a company at only 30. Shinha recounts Juin's incredible past. Accepted to Harvard at 19, she developed the social ranking app Nista, which now has 500 million users. She continues, explaining how Juin leveraged Nista to expand into entertainment and AI, making Juin Holdings the top company in South Korea. 2 trillion. Juin shrieks, her face comically distorted in utter shock at the number. Hesitantly, Shinha suggests that judging by her current condition, Ms. Jian may be suffering from memory loss. Flap, flap. A panicked Juin frantically waves her hands, insisting she's fine as a concerned Shinha looks on. Shinha agrees to see her for the bodyguard interview tomorrow, leaving Juin sweating nervously at her desk. Flop. The exhausting day ends with Juin collapsing onto her massive, luxurious bed with a heavy sigh. Lying on her back, she stares at the ceiling, lost in thought. She flashes back to scenes of her old, impoverished life. The trash outside her window, her parents sleeping, her former self in bed. As she thinks, I can't help but think that. Lying in her opulent bed, she continues to ponder the stark contrast between her two lives. The next day, Juin sits at her desk in a pink pantsuit as Shinha announces the start of the interview. Juin marvels at a tablet, excited that the screen can hear her, and asking if Bixie can understand her now. Shinha remarks that Juin might not be fit to meet new people, and offers to cancel, but Juin quickly backtracks, insisting she's fine. As the candidate enters, Shinha explains he was recommended by the president of Insang Group, allowing him to skip the initial screenings. A handsome man in a dark suit stands before them. As Shinha notes he's the same age as Juin, the man suddenly whips out a handgun and points it directly at a stunned Juin. Bang, 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 bang. Shinha immediately draws her own weapon and fires, while Juin screams in terror. Tap, 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 tap. The candidate calmly raises his hands, effortlessly catching all 4 bullets midair. Swish, he opens his palm to reveal the 4 projectiles, completely unharmed. Astonished, Juin asks how he caught what she presumes were BBs with his bare hands. With his back to them, the candidate thinks to himself that he's a complete loser. The scene flashes to 4 menacing silhouettes, hinting at a dark and troubled past. A young man with dark hair screams at his brightly lit computer monitor in a dark room. A ghostly woman materializes in a swirl of blue energy, cheerfully greeting the boy and stating they're here to look at his body. The terrified boy backs away on the floor as the ghostly woman claps her hands, invitingly saying, "Come on in." Slide. A second ghost, a smug man in a floral shirt, floats through the door and asks if this is the place. The boy stares up from the floor, his face a mask of pure shock and fear. The man in the floral shirt looks down with a confident, appraising smirk. The two spirits stand over the boy as the woman tells him to take a good look at his visitor. The man scoffs, asking if this little shrimp is all she has, but the woman defends the boy, insisting he's still growing. Who are you, the boy stammers, only for the woman to remind him he offered up his body and she just needs to pull up his file. She reads from a clipboard, identifying him as Do-Guan Ju, age 17, and recounting his year-long wish to die. The woman reveals Ju's only hesitation is the grief it would cause his grandmother, who raised him. A stunned Ju asks how she knew, and the woman, satisfied, states that everything seems to be in order. She introduces her client, Mr. Daisy Shin, also 17, who thinks to himself that he really is the same age. The woman describes Daisy Shin as an athletic prodigy, a martial arts champion, and an expert in physical training. She adds that he's a renowned fighter who even received a recruitment offer from a national gang. Daisy Shin expresses doubts and asks for other options, but the woman pressures him, warning this may be his only chance at a body. Scratch, scratch. After a moment of frustrated consideration, Daisy Shin reluctantly agrees to take the deal, and the woman prepares to read the contract. The broker explains the terms. Mr. Shin will inhabit Mr. Ju's body, care for his grandmother, and inherit his direct ticket to heaven, while Mr. Ju's soul will ascend. She adds that this special afterlife program is only available to those in countries with the highest suicide rates. Flinch. Daisy Shin impatiently yells at the hesitating Ju to get on with it and close his eyes. In a luxurious high-rise apartment, a bare-chested man with dark hair awakens on a couch, wondering what's happening. Sitting up, he looks around the unfamiliar, opulent room and asks aloud, "Where am I?" Dash! A man with silver hair charges at him, shouting, "You're dead, meat Ju," as Ju looks on in confusion. Wham! The attacker slams into Ju, sending both of them reeling from the impact. The silver-haired man is left unconscious on the couch, while Ju sits on the floor, dazed but unharmed. Wish! Ju's eyes widen in shock as he processes the sudden, violent encounter. Standing up, Ju looks down at his new, muscular, and scarred body in silent astonishment. He examines his reflection and touches a scar on his chest, realizing with a start, wait, is that me? Gasp. Panicking, Ju looks at the unconscious man, realizing he knocked him out and thinking he needs to call 911. The spirit of Daisy Shin appears, scoffing at calling 911 as Ju recognizes his spectral visitor. As Ju asks what's going on, Daisy Shin's spirit demands to know who sent the attacker, but Ju replies that he has no clue. Daisy Shin's spirit yells furiously into the air, demanding an explanation from the broker lady. A man in a white suit and sunglasses descends from the ceiling, coolly asking for Mr. Daisy Shin. The man introduces himself as an agent from Heaven's Central Intelligence Agency, shocking both Daisy Shin's spirit and a comically distorted Ju. The agent from Heaven's CIA maintains a stern, professional expression. A scam, Daisy Shin asks, horrified, realizing the broker may have tricked him when he signed away his ticket to heaven. Ju murmurs that he gets it now, prompting an annoyed Daisy Shin to ask what he's talking about. Ju explains that he'd found it suspicious from the start that a gangster would get a direct ticket to heaven. Enraged, Daisy Shin defends himself, yelling that he's a good fighter, not a bully, and lists his church attendance, volunteer work, and baptismal name, Andre. A blonde-haired woman in a suit interrupts, telling them to focus as there's a string of scams in the Samhui neighborhood. The agent informs Mr. Shin she needs his testimony for an investigation that will take about 108 days. Daisy Shin explodes in anger, shouting that this is a critical time for him, as he's about to gain power in the syndicate after 13 years of hiding. The female agent sighs, exasperated by the complication, while Ju and Daisy Shin's spirit look on. Daisy Shin turns on Ju, pointing a finger at him and explaining that in this new reality, Do-Guan Ju is 30 years old. What? Ju exclaims, shocked that 13 years have passed, but Daise Shin tells him to shut up and listen. Daise Shin solemnly reveals that Ju's grandmother passed away last year, but he fulfilled his promise to care for her and gave her a lovely funeral. Gasp, Ju begins to cry for his granny, but Daise Shin berates him for undoing all the hard work he put into making Do-kwon a strong man. He reveals that Do-kwon is now ranked 3rd in the Insang National Crime Syndicate and was known as the secret weapon in a special forces unit. Daise Shin explains that he rarely took outside jobs, so only the top executives of the Insang group know his face. In a flashback, Daise Shin informs someone named Wonsu that he has to disappear for a while. On the phone, Do-kwon-ju reports that an assassin came to his hotel room and asks for someone to clean up the mess he's already handled. In an industrial area, a gray-haired man in a suit named Wonsu agrees on the phone and adds that he needs a quiet place to stay for 4 months. In a flashback, the spirit of Daise Shin instructs a shirtless Do-kwon-ju to always act confident and never ruin his reputation. Daise Shin furiously warns Ju that his life is now a gritty action movie and threatens him with death if he messes anything up. In a car at night, a voice explains that they tried to interrogate the assassin, but he took his own life before they could. Slide. Wonsu prepares to take his own life for his failure, but a hand grabs the blade as someone off-screen screams. A panicked Do-kwon-ju stops him, crying out that he's helpless without him. Wonsu informs Ju that Chairman Jian is keeping a low profile for 100 days, making it the perfect time for Ju to stay with her as a bodyguard. Done. Dressed in a suit, Do-kwon-ju processes the shocking turn of events. He's now interviewing to be a company chairman's bodyguard. Standing before Ju-in and Shin-ha, Ju thinks he couldn't possibly know someone so high class and assumes his body just recognizes her from being famous. Shin-ha addresses him as Mr. Ju, and he nervously responds. Beaming with delight, Ju-in clasps her hands and enthusiastically asks him to be her bodyguard, shocking a flustered Shin-ha. Shin-ha reminds Ms. Jian that there are still several other candidates to consider for the position. Ju-in thoughtfully considers this, musing that she doesn't think they will find any other applicants. Who are that handsome? She concludes with a sly smile. Outside the mansion, Do-kwon-ju calls Wonsu to tell him the interview is finished. At his desk, Wonsu asks Ju what he thinks and how the interview went. Do-kwon-ju smiles confidently, replying simply, "She's pretty." Back inside, Shin-ha informs Ju that the chairman wants to sign the contract today, but needs to brief him on a few things first. Shin-ha explains his letter of recommendation is from Insang-ji, the chairman of Insang Group, which is now a legitimate company, but its origins as a national crime syndicate are well known, a fact Ju seems to acknowledge. Shin-ha sternly asks that he do his best to protect Ms. Jian and keep anything that happens on his shift a secret. Just as she says there's one more thing, a noise interrupts her. Slam! Ju-in bursts out of her room, energetically yelling for everyone to come eat. She excitedly announces the kitchen is full of food, comparing it to a fancy buffet. Huff, huff! Ju-in can't contain her excitement about getting to eat like this 3 times a day, as Ju and Shin-ha look on. At a massive dinner feast, Ju-in, her parents, Shin-ha, and Do-kwon-ju are gathered, with Ju-in marveling at the spread. Ju-in stops her father, looking confused. She asks if they shouldn't wait for everyone else to sit down before starting to eat, but her father seems puzzled by her question. When her father asks who else is coming, Ju-in clarifies she means the staff who work there. Shin-ha informs a shocked Ju-in that she never dines with the lowly staff. Ju-in argues that status doesn't matter when sharing a meal, and wonders how they could possibly eat all the food themselves. Her parents look at each other, and her father casually states they can just throw away whatever is left over. Outraged, Ju-in yells, "No way!" and reminds her mother of their impoverished past, when they ate even spoiled food to avoid waste. Spring! Slam! She leaps to her feet, slamming her hands on the table in fury over the careless attitude toward expensive food. Calming down, she insists it's wasteful and they should eat together or prepare less. But Shin-ha explains the staff is already eating and they can adjust tomorrow. Ju-in's father addresses Do-kwon-ju, who stands and formally introduces himself as he begins his post. Her father remarks on his unique name, recalling that Ju-in knew a boy with the same name in kindergarten. Ju-in's parents light up, excited by the coincidence and declaring it must be fate. Ju-in finds it odd that his name is familiar, yet she has no memory of seeing him at kindergarten. Ju-in invites him to use her first name, while Do-kwon-ju admits he doesn't remember her either. Roll. Roll. Later, a tiny, happy Ju-in rolls around in her robe, giddy with excitement about being rich. Ta-da! She strikes a triumphant pose on her bed, declaring herself the queen of goofing off and ready to enjoy her new life. Sitting up, she decides her first order of business is to gather information about what's happened in her life. She spots the tablet on her nightstand, remembering the device. Picking up the tablet, she asks her voice assistant, Bixie, to show her pictures from the last 13 years. She gasps in awe, seeing a photo of herself with a famous Hollywood actor. As Shinha enters, Juin points to the next picture on the tablet, asking why that girl is standing next to her. The photo shows her with a cheerful, blonde-haired woman, whom she identifies as Gorin Choi. Shinha corrects her, asking if she means Cherim, and explaining they were best friends, which leaves Juin confused by the unfamiliar name. Juin asks why Cherim would attend her party, but Shinha explains that as a top Korean star, her attendance was expected at such a high-profile event. Scoffing, Juin realizes that Brat really did become an A-list celebrity, leaving a confused Shinha wondering what the problem is. A flashback shows a smiling, blonde-haired Gorin Choi as Juin's narration recalls her past animosity. In a karaoke room flashback, a blonde man with a prominent arm tattoo mockingly identifies a young Juin as that loser. The man taunts the timid Juin to dance for them, but she nervously explains that Gorin asked her to come. The men dismiss her, saying Gorin is a busy trainee, as the tattooed man aggressively demands she come over. Rush A, terrified Juin, flees the room as the men yell after her, demanding to know where she is going. Huff, Juin pants for breath, hiding in a dark, grimy alleyway after her escape. On the phone, a betrayed Juin confronts Gorin, asking why she set her up when she said they were going to resolve their issues. Over the phone, Gorin casually admits she just hates seeing Juin's goofy smile. Back in the present, Juin thinks that she would recognize Gorin's face anywhere and could never forget it. Sitting on her bed, Juin declares she never wants to see or be near Goran ever again. Her resolve wavers as tears well up, but she quickly hardens, asking herself why she should be afraid of her. Juin realizes that her body's previous occupant, Runa, didn't know their history and was able to smile for photos with Gorin. The thought of Gorin smiling beside her like nothing happened infuriates Juin. Noticing her distress, Shinha expresses concern that Ms. Jian looks unwell and suggests calling a doctor. Juin reassures Shinha that she's better than fine. With a cold, determined look, Juin states that this is the best she has ever felt. Juin asks Shinha to summon Gorin or Cherim immediately, but Shinha informs her she's on a world tour and won't be back for 2 months. Juin tells Shinha to wish Cherim a great show and to savor the cheers of her fans. With a dark, menacing expression, she adds that it will be the last concert of her life. A confused Shinha asks if this means Cherim is retiring from singing to focus on acting. VRRR. Shinha is startled by a call on her vibrating phone. Answering the phone, Shinha tells the caller that Ms. Jian is unavailable for a meeting, but she can take a message. Juin asks who is on the line, and Shinha informs her it's a Mr. Seo. Shinha stands in the lavish bedroom, listening to the caller on her phone. The camera pulls back, showing the opulent bedroom as Shinha continues her phone call. Baffled, Juin is surrounded by question marks, completely clueless as to who Mr. Seo is. Juin has a sudden flash of realization and asks if her fiancé, Mr. Seo, is coming. As Shinha notes, she usually calls him Philip. Shoot, flap, flap, a frantic Juin panics, reminding Shinha she's not supposed to be meeting anyone. Dash. Her bodyguard, Dogwon Ju, sprints past her as she sits on the floor in a daze. Boom! Juin clutches her head in utter shock, horrified by the revelation that she has a fiancé. Pace. Pace. Anxiously pacing, Juin worries she'll make mistakes and hopes Shinha will turn him away, but gets a bad feeling. A voice calls out for Dogwon, and he turns from the hallway to answer. Juin appears at her bedroom door, ordering Dogwon to guard it and let no one in, though he's confused about who might be coming. She frantically pleads with him to stop anyone who shows up, at all costs, and a startled Dogwon agrees. Hiding under her covers, Juin asks her tablet's assistant, Bixie, for information on Philip Seo. The tablet displays Philip Seo's profile, the 33-year-old third son of the chairman of the second largest conglomerate in South Korea. As she reads about her engagement announcement to Philip Seo, Juin chews her finger, wondering why her body's previous soul didn't tell her something so important. Screech. A black luxury sedan pulls up to the gates of the Grand Mansion. The handsome Philip Seo steps out of his car as someone calls his name. Rush, Shinha runs out to stop Philip, addressing him as Miss Min and telling him he can't go inside. Philip explains to Shinha that he's worried because he hasn't been able to reach Juin for 49 hours. He looks at her with frustrated concern, asking why she is stopping him when he only came to see Juin's face. Shinha apologizes and asks him to wait at home for her call, but Philip impatiently asks how much longer he must wait. When Shinha firmly refuses him entry, Philip calls for his own man, Mr. Park. A stern-looking man with a goatee, Mr. Park, steps forward from beside the car. Step. Mr. Park shoves Shinha aside, telling her to stay back as Philip walks determinedly toward the house. Philip enters the mansion, calling out for Juin, asking where she is. Juin's parents greet Philip warmly, though her mother wears an apologetic expression as she prepares to give him bad news. Juin's mother explains that her daughter isn't well enough for visitors, and Philip's CEO looks hurt by the rejection. Philip's expression hardens with frustrated determination. After learning Juin is on the second floor, Philip announces he'll just go see her for a moment. Philip walks up the grand staircase, calling out for Juin. Do Guanju stands in the hallway, blocking Philip's path and telling him he can't go in. Philip approaches Do Guan, demanding to know what this is, as the bodyguard introduces himself. Philip dismisses his job title, angrily stating all he sees is a man trying to stop him from seeing his own fiancée. Philip orders Do Guan to move, but the bodyguard stands his ground, repeating his request for him to leave. Dash! An angry Philip calls for Mr. Park, who rushes up the stairs to his side. Philip instructs Do Guan to handle Mr. Park as well, and the man with the goatee confirms the order. Gulp Do Guan sweats nervously, thinking Mr. Park looks scary, and wondering if he should just beg him to leave. Squeeze. Before Mr. Park can act, Do Guan grabs his wrist, causing him to scream in pain. Grip Mr. Park grimaces in agony as Do Guan's hold tightens, cutting off his circulation. Tap. Do Guan calmly checks his watch, while Mr. Park nurses his stinging hand. A shocked Do Guan realizes his body acted on its own, striking first without him even thinking. Ba-bump, Do Guan feels his heart pound, realizing this body's power is nothing to mess with. Clench. He clenches his fist, marveling at the newfound, exhilarating confidence of feeling unbeatable. A furious Philip calls his man's performance embarrassing, and Mr. Park apologizes for his failure. Mr. Park acknowledges Do Guan's strength, but warns him to leave while he has the chance, threatening to use his full power. Do Guan settles into a fighting stance, prepared for the confrontation. His eyes narrow with intense focus and determination. Flinch. Mr. Park suddenly recoils, struck by a terrifying thought about who the bodyguard might be. Philip yells impatiently at Mr. Park, ordering him to stop standing there and just beat the bodyguard up. First, Juin throws open her door, shouting in disbelief at her fiancé's command. She storms toward Philip, angrily asking why he didn't just wait for her as she requested. Juin furiously questions if being her fiancé gives him the right to invade her home and fight her staff, as he stammers that he was just worried. She insists there's nothing to worry about and demands he wait until she's ready, questioning his inability to grant that simple request. Shocked, Juin threatens to call off the marriage entirely, causing a panicked Philip to apologize and agree to leave immediately. Zoom. Philip and Mr. Park flee down the hall as he shouts back for her to let him know when she's ready. Wobble. Grab. As her adrenaline fades, Juin stumbles, and Do Guan catches her, asking if she's alright. Juin asks why he's being so formal, and Do Guan, flustered, wonders why she came out when he could have handled it. Looking down with genuine concern, she admits she didn't want him to get hurt because of her. Do Guan looks at her, momentarily stunned by her kindness, before simply saying, "Oh, thanks." In his car, Philip chews his finger worriedly, reminding himself that a lot is riding on this marriage for both companies. He turns to Mr. Park and asks about the bodyguard. As they talk, a thought crosses Philip's mind that the bodyguard looked like a mob boss. Driving away from the mansion, Philip anxiously asks Mr. Park if he thinks Juin was serious about not marrying him. Philip tries to calm himself, reasoning that she was just angry and knowing his father will kill him if she backs out. Mr. Park comments that it's a good thing Philip went easy on the bodyguard, because going harder would have made Juin angrier. Philip reveals he knows of Chairman Ji, who used to lead a crime syndicate, and that he's met his father. Mr. Park recounts a past incident where Mr. Ji was attacked by 100 men from a rival gang. In the flashback, a single man stood against the crowd and defeated all of them. That man, a younger Do Guanju, single-handedly saved Mr. Ji's life. Philip scoffs, dismissing the story as an exaggerated tale that gangsters tell each other. Mr. Park explains the incident prompted Mr. Ji to disband his syndicate, but someone else secretly took over and kept it running. He reveals he saw the new leader's face once and will never forget his eyes, even though he doesn't know his name. Mr. Park explains that to launder their status, Crime figures often marry into established business families, just as Mr. G did. He compares it to marrying a princess to become a king, a thought that makes Philip pause and reconsider. A horrified Philip puts the pieces together, asking if he's suggesting the bodyguard is trying to get with Ju-in. Wham! Philip slams his fist in fury, outraged at the thought, while Mr. Park calmly suggests they must be open to all possibilities. Vroom! Speeding away, a furious Philip orders his intelligence forces to identify the bodyguard and report on Ju-in's every move. Phew. Shin-hye reassures Ju-in, who is resting in bed, that she messaged Mr. Seo to smooth things over, and Ju-in asks if she can finally relax. Shin-hye adjusts her glasses, warning that Mr. Seo hates not being in control, and will undoubtedly try to find out why he was sent away. Ju-in laughs nervously about Philip's persistence, while Shin-hye admits she doesn't understand Ju-in's plan, but will continue to follow her orders. Shin-hye explains that despite ordering staff to be confidential, she can't guarantee rumors won't leak out if Mr. Seo is determined to investigate. Shin-hye advises Ju-in to stay in her room for safety and let her handle all communication, which Ju-in thoughtfully accepts. Tremble. A young, nervous maid introduces herself as Bin-ru Chu, vowing to give her all in serving Ju-in. Ju-in asks for Bin-ru's age, and the shivering maid replies that she is 19. Beam! Ju-in cheerfully notes they're nearly the same age and asks to be friends, leaving confused Bin-ru to wonder what she means. With a bright, friendly smile, Ju-in invites the new maid to watch some TV with her. Ju-in pats the seat beside her, asking what kind of shows Bin-ru likes, but the maid nervously insists she can't do that. When Ju-in asks why, the flustered Bin-ru explains that a mere servant like herself couldn't possibly sit with someone so prestigious. Ju-in playfully insists she isn't fancy and it's a waste to watch shows alone, but Bin-ru continues to panic and refuse. Trickle. Tears well up in Ju-in's eyes, her feelings hurt by the young maid's persistent refusal. Elsewhere, Do-kwon asks Shin-hye if he should avoid even talking to Ms. Jian, and Shin-hye confirms that he should, at least for now. Shin-hye explains that Ms. Jian will be staying in her room and won't need him, prompting Do-kwon to ask what he should do instead. Shin-hye instructs Do-kwon to wait in the adjacent room until he receives further instructions. Alone in a study, Do-kwon sits on the floor and wonders if he should play some games on the nearby computer. Click. He looks at the computer, puzzled as to why a game costs money when he remembers it being free 13 years ago. A man in a vest answers his phone while leaning against a vending machine, casually asking his boss what he's up to. On the phone, Do-kwon explains he's trying to play an online game but doesn't have a card, leaving his associate confused. Whoa. The associate comically misunderstands, thinking his boss is gambling and respectfully offers to send funds for his game. A flustered Do-kwon clarifies he just needs a credit card for a video game, not gambling, as his associate apologizes for forgetting to give him one. The associate asks a simple question. How much of the money on the card is he allowed to use? He chuckles, finding the question amusing and calling it a good one, boss. The associate reveals the card has unlimited spending, leaving Do-kwon staring at his phone in utter shock. Looking out at the Grand Mansion, Do-kwon is stunned silent, grappling with the reality of having access to unlimited funds. Two maids gossip with a third, wondering why Bin-ru has been in Madame Jeon's room for hours. One admits she listened at the door. The eavesdropping maid whispers that she heard Bin-ru crying and begging Ju-in to stop while being scolded. The maids conclude that poor Bin-ru must be receiving a harsh punishment, possibly because she had hair on her apron. Stream. In a dramatic scene, a tearful Bin-ru begs, "No more," but Ju-in declares they are just getting started. The real reason is revealed. They're celebrating finishing season 1 of a TV show and are cheering to start the next season. Munch. Munch. Ju-in excitedly eats popcorn, but Bin-ru trembles, worrying she will be punished by her superiors for slacking off all day. Oops. A guilty Ju-in apologizes for being selfish and tells Bin-ru she can go, but the maid tearfully insists this has been the happiest day of her life. Ju-in asks when Bin-ru's days off are, promising to continue their marathon then, which moves the young maid. Bin-ru explains that her good pay, food, and lodging come at the cost of being on call 24/7, which Ju-in declares is ridiculous. With firm resolve, Ju-in promises to change the rules to ensure Bin-ru gets at least 2 days off every week. A surprised Bin-ru looks at her new boss, realizing that the rumors she heard about Madame Jeon must not be true. Bin-ru recounts the rumors she heard, that Ju-in was cold, selfish, and a frivolous spender, but says she's found her to be quite frugal instead. Jump. Bin-ru leaps up in a panic, frantically apologizing for speaking out of turn, while Ju-in looks surprised by her own reputation. Sob. Juin waves goodbye as Binru bows repeatedly, promising to be available for anything before she scurries away in tears. Juin thoughtfully touches her chin, wondering if it would arouse suspicion if the real Juin suddenly stopped spending lots of money. After glancing at the elegant food spread, Juin calls for Bixie, asking for help with something. With a mischievous glint in her eye, Juin announces that she wants to have some fun and spend some money. Her confidence wavers as she realizes it might look suspicious if she spends too much or too little compared to her usual habits. Juin asks her phone's assistant, Bixie, about her typical spending on purses and clothes, and Bixie offers to provide the average amount. Piff. Juin spits out her drink in disbelief upon hearing the figure, which is noted to be about 350,000 United States dollars. Quivering, she taps the table and asks how much it was, and Bixby calmly states the exact figure, 497,882,781 won. Horrified, Juin clarifies she meant spending on clothes, not a house, but Bixby confirms that is her average amount per luxury shopping trip. Tap. What the hell? Juin yells, unable to believe she could burn through 500 million won in a single trip, and throws her phone onto the sofa. Stunned, Juin calculates that an average person would need to save their whole life for that sum, as Bixie offers to connect her to a luxury shopping site, muttering to herself. She comically laments how many instant noodles and eggs that money could have bought, while Bixby patiently waits. Swoosh! Her mood shifts instantly as she points with fierce determination, shouting for a luxury brand. The scene transitions to a peaceful, sunny field with lush green plants under a bright blue sky. In a video game world, a red-haired character named Dog stands alone in a serene, grassy field. A flashback shows the game on a monitor, with a red dragon flying out as Dogwon narrates that it was his only connection to the world after he dropped out of school. Back in the present, Dogwon reflects that while only a few days have passed for him, 13 years have gone by in the game. Click, he smiles, excited at the prospect of an expanded map with new areas to explore. A high-level, armored player named Kingski confronts the low-level Dog, asking what he's doing here, and Dog greets him cheerfully. Dog explains he hasn't played in 13 years and asks for help, but Kingski scoffs that he'll need to spend a lot of money to catch up. Poke. As Dog innocently says he just wants to have a good time, Kingski's armored finger pokes him dismissively. Instantly, Dog's character is killed, and Kingski stands over him, coldly telling the noob to just give up. As he walks away, Kingski mocks Dong for talking about trying his best in a pay-to-win game, calling him a weak casual. Rumble. The insult enrages the real Dogwon, whose face darkens as he vows to remember Kingski's username. The scene shifts as Juin announces to Shinha that the luxury clothes she ordered have arrived, and she's tried them on. Hee hee. Juin, in a flashy designer dress and a new hairstyle, excitedly asks Shinha for her opinion, but Shinha remains silent. Shinha bluntly asks if she's trying to look like a K-pop idol, which Juin takes as a compliment, gushing that it was her childhood dream. Juin sighs that she'll have to return the clothes, and Shinha curiously repeats the word refund. Gasp, Juin panics, wondering if luxury brands don't offer refunds, but Shinha calmly confirms that they do. Confused, Juin asks why Shinha was surprised, and Shinha reveals that the real Juin has never gone back on a decision in her life. Shinha explains Juin's philosophy: never reverse a decision, and if it's wrong, turn it into the right one. Gleam. Shinha dramatically quotes Juin's own autobiography, Guide to Life, reinforcing this unbending philosophy. Flustered, Juin wonders what to do now that she's stuck with clothes she doesn't want to wear. Yeah. Back in the game, Kingski's clan celebrates capturing a castle, with him boasting that it's all thanks to him, the strongest player on the server. A clan member, Zizol, questions his confidence, mentioning a recent server announcement, but Kingski arrogantly declares he always wins. Kingski asks what announcement she means, and Zizol reveals someone obtained a full set of impossibly rare max-level enhancement buffs. Shocked, Kingski complains that he could have bought a house with all the money he's invested in the game. Before a massive gate, Kingski defiantly declares that no one in the game has better items than him. Dadan. A figure in dazzling, powerful armor appears, holding a glowing sword and announcing, "I do." It is Dog, now level 200. Kingski and his clan stare in disbelief as Dogen calmly asks if it felt good to curse and kill him earlier. BZZT. His sword crackles with power as he promises to hunt Kingski down and kill him repeatedly every time he respawns. With a menacing grin, Dog tells the casual he should just give up on the game. The scene cuts to a sparkling collection of various expensive designer handbags. A similar shot shows a dazzling array of luxury shoes, from heels to sneakers. Ju-in models a chic new outfit, a black short suit and a red beret, looking thoughtful. Her thoughtful expression turns into a sweet, confident smile. Binru the maid arrives with more packages for Madame Jean, who is happy to see her. Tee-hee. Ju-in strikes a cute pose in her new outfit, excitedly asking Binru how she looks, leaving the maid confused. Ju-in generously offers to give some of her newly purchased luxury goods to Binru as a gift. A shocked Binru questions if she means the expensive luxury items, and Ju-in cheerfully confirms she has plenty. Binru stammers that she can't accept, but Ju-in insists, saying she doesn't need it all and someone should enjoy it. Droop. Ju-in excitedly suggests they could dress up and take selfies, but Binru's head sinks in despair. Wah! Binru bursts into tears, crying that she can't do this anymore as she flees the room, leaving a bewildered Ju-in behind. As Ju-in wonders what's wrong, Shinha arrives with tea and begins to explain what's happening with Binru. Shinha reveals that rumors are spreading among the staff that Binru is getting special treatment and slacking off in Ju-in's room. Horrified, Ju-in realizes her kind gesture would have confirmed the rumors, putting Binru in a terrible position. Looking down with guilt, Ju-in takes the blame and resolves to crack down on the rumors to protect Binru. Alone in her room filled with shopping boxes, Ju-in sighs and decides she needs to take a break. She looks down, her hair falling over her face, and admits to herself that she just needs a friend. Toss. She throws her jacket aside in frustration, wondering how this is any different from just playing with a dress-up doll by herself. Alone in her luxurious room, Ju-in reflects that people are truly never satisfied. From her balcony door, she gives a small, melancholic wave to the world outside. The camera pulls back, showing the grand mansion as Ju-in becomes a small figure on the balcony. Elsewhere, Do-kwon sits at his desk in front of a laptop, sighing that he's incredibly bored. Click. He thinks that after spending so much money to become the best player, the game now feels completely meaningless. While showering, he reflects that his old weak body was content at home, but now he's full of boiling energy. Clenching his fist with new resolve, he realizes he desperately wants to go outside. In her room, surrounded by luxury goods, Ju-in echoes his sentiment, thinking to herself, "I'm so bored." Looking at her tablet, Ju-in instructs that the rest of the expensive items be evenly distributed among the household staff. The maids, including a smiling Binru, are thrilled as they look over the luxury handbags, calling them an unbelievable work bonus. A fellow maid encourages a hesitant Binru to try on one of the new clothing items. The maid compliments Binru, now in a new coat, telling her she looks like a wealthy heiress. Weep Ju-in dramatically cries, wailing that there's no point having trillions of won if she can't even go outside to show it off. Trudge. As she mopes down the stairs, she wistfully thinks about her favorite local teokbokki place, Swish. Meanwhile, Do-kwon channels his energy into practicing a powerful high kick. Glare. He strikes a pose, intensely focused, as if preparing for a dramatic encounter. Aki's suddenly startled by Ju-in, who pops up and innocently asks what he's doing. Do-kwon panics, recalling he was told to avoid her, while Ju-in admits that she's bored too. Ju-in declares that their confined situation is the real problem, and the frustration is killing her. Wham! Wham! She playfully hits Do-kwon's back, complaining that their life is worse than a fish in an aquarium, as he asks her to calm down. He rubs his neck, admitting he also feels trapped and can't leave as long as she's confined to the mansion. Ju-in's eyes widen as she asks if he means he'll go with her if she leaves. A surprised Do-kwon tentatively agrees. Bah dumb! Her heart pounds with excitement at the sudden possibility of a shared escape. Later, Shinha checks on Ju-in, who is feigning illness in bed and claims she's just tired. Peeking from her blankets, Ju-in announces she's taking sleeping pills for the day and orders no one to disturb her. Shinha formally accepts the order, wishing her a good rest before leaving the room. The moment the coast is clear, Ju-in bolts out of bed and excitedly calls to Do-kwon that her plan worked. Waiting on the balcony below, Do-kwon offers his hand to help her down. Sneak! Sneak! The two comically tiptoe together across the mansion grounds. Ju-in leads the way, confidently telling Do-kwon she knows how to avoid all the security cameras. In a long shot, Do-kwon gives Ju-in a boost over the high wall as their driver waits patiently by the gate. Having successfully scaled the wall, they make their way to the waiting black car. Inside the car, they look at each other with triumphant smiles, celebrating their successful escape. The gray-haired driver warns Do-kwon that he could be in trouble for this later, but he's only following orders. Nod. Do-kwon confidently says he'll handle it, and the driver silently agrees to proceed. Shout! Together, they excitedly yell out their destination, Samhui. Now in casual clothes, they walk happily down a street, arm in arm, finally feeling free and better. Giggle. As they explore the neighborhood, Juin confirms that getting food is the entire reason for their adventure. She asks if he knows Sammy's snack bar, and he confirms that any former resident of Samhui would. They arrive at the spot only to find a Malatang Chinese restaurant in its place. They both stand dumbfounded, admitting they've never even heard of Malatang before. Juin looks dejected, realizing her favorite restaurant is gone and lamenting how long she's been away. When he suggests another place, she stubbornly insists there's no point if the tteokbokki isn't from Sammy's snack bar. Slurp. In a quick flashback, 3 schoolgirls happily slurp noodles in a restaurant. Slurp. The scene cuts back to the present, where Juin is voraciously eating the malatang, much to Dogwon's amusement. Wow! With stars in her eyes, Juin marvels at how unbelievably delicious the new dish is. Nom nom. As she eats, Dogwon smiles, glad she likes it, but she questions why he isn't eating. She greedily reaches for his bowl, declaring it's too good to waste, while he stammers in protest. Dogwon watches her thoughtfully, admitting he expected a rich person like her to be distant and different from him. He continues that she is more normal and friendly than he imagined, prompting Juin to pop up and exclaim she could say the same about him. Juin admits to Dogwon that her secretary had warned her about him, and his fighting skills initially made her think he was scary. She continues that he actually acts like a kid, prompting him to defensively declare he's strong and capable, which only makes her tease him for getting upset over nothing, further proving her point that he's like a high schooler. They launch into a childish argument, with Dogwon calling her a middle schooler, her retorting he's an elementary schooler, and the insults escalating from kindergartner and newborn baby to him declaring she hasn't even been born yet. The argument stops when Dogwon mentions he went to Samhui Elementary, and a surprised Juin reveals she did too. As she eats, she asks about middle school, and he confirms he also attended Samhui Middle School. Juin is stunned to learn they both went to Samhui Middle School, and Dogwon looks equally shocked by the coincidence. She processes the revelation that they've been going to the same school since kindergarten. They share a long, silent stare across the table, absorbing the newfound connection between their pasts. Juin asks if he also went to Samhui High, and from the counter, Dogwon internally confirms that he did. Juin exclaims, "No way," but then qualifies her statement, admitting it's a stretch to say she actually attended high school. He asks why she dropped out, but she seems hesitant to answer. He guesses she was a troublemaker who got kicked out for fighting, which is why they never crossed paths, since he avoided bad kids. Juin internally reflects that it's hard to believe she was bullied into dropping out when she has such a strong body now. Deciding to go along with his story, she agrees, but he questions her reluctance to admit it, which she quickly dismisses. After their meal, Juin happily asks where they should go next, and Dogwon agrees to anywhere except karaoke. As Juin looks on curiously, he explains that karaoke brings up some bad memories for him. Instead, they head to an arcade and start having fun on a dance machine. They try their luck at a claw machine, both looking determined to win a stuffed bunny. Wham! Ding ding ding! After a turn at the punch machine, they stare in awe at the maxed out score of 999. Next, they take aim at a shooting gallery, standing side by side with toy guns. They continue to explore the lively, crowded arcade together. Back outside, Juin suggests taking a shortcut down an alley, and Dogwon agrees. As they step into the alley, they overhear a menacing voice demanding money from someone. They see 3 bullies, led by a large blonde man, cornering a student over an inflated debt of 1 million won. The student protests that he was forced to take the money, which only angers one of the bullies. Juin angrily curses the bullies, but Dogwon puts a hand on her shoulder, suggesting they leave. He reminds her they're out secretly, but she insists they should at least call the police. The cornered student helplessly tells the bullies that he doesn't have the money. The blonde bully threateningly suggests kidnapping the boy's little sister from Samhui Middle School to cover the debt. Wham! Before he can finish, the blonde bully is sent reeling from a powerful, unseen punch. Skied. The force of the blow sends the bully skidding across the pavement. Dogwon now stands protectively in front of Juin and the bullied student, having taken down the thugs. Flinch. The remaining 2 thugs stare in disbelief, calling Dogwon a monster for sending their leader flying with 1 punch. Dogwon asks if they'll remember his face, and one nervously confirms they will, admitting he just knocked out Samhui's best fighter. His expression turns grim and resolute, signaling the fight isn't over. Pow! Pow! Dogwon swiftly takes down the other 2 bullies with a flurry of punches. Whoosh! He finishes the job with a powerful kick, sending the last one flying. The dazed blonde bully sits on the ground, wondering if he was just hit by a brick. The bullied student bows deeply to Do-kwon, apologizing for dragging him and his friends into the mess. Do-kwon calmly approaches the dazed blonde bully, who looks up at him with confusion and fear. A tense and ominous atmosphere hangs in the air as he stands over the defeated bully. The bully begs to resolve things peacefully, but Do-kwon coldly refuses, stating it's too late since he's seen his face. The bully laughs hysterically, frantically promising he doesn't remember a thing. Smack. Do-kwon lightly slaps his face, asking if that's what happened, and the terrified bully enthusiastically agrees. Jolt Do-kwon then turns the conversation to the student's debt, asking if the bully still plans to collect. Kneeling, the bully quickly retracts the debt, admitting it was a scam and promising not to bother the student again. Wish. The bully swears he's retiring today, and Do-kwon accepts his word before turning to leave. He walks back to Ju-in, who waits for him at the alley entrance. She asks if he's okay after the fight, and he admits with a sigh that he's not okay at all. As they walk away under the evening sky, Ju-in lets out a laugh, shaking her head at the unexpected turn of events. Back at the mansion, Shin-ha stands outside Ju-in's bedroom, apologizing for disturbing her sleep but insisting she must report on urgent company business. First, finding the door unlocked, she throws it open and frantically calls for Ms. Jian. Whoosh. She rips the blankets off the bed, still calling out for Ms. Jian in a panic. Shin-ha stares in confusion at a teddy bear tucked into the bed, holding a handwritten note. Her panicked cry for Ms. Jian echoes as the full scope of the escape becomes clear at the Grand Mansion. In a high-rise office, a man identified as Director Seo is informed that the news he's heard is true. The director's subordinate confirms the intel came directly from a maid he bribed. Director Seo smirks as he learns Madame Jian and her bodyguard sneaked out, musing that the bastard is getting bold. The director arrives at a luxurious office where a gray-haired man at a large desk tells him to come in. The director formally addresses the stern-faced man as Chairman Ji. Now seated, the director tells Chairman Ji that Ju-in's father is eagerly awaiting their marriage, and the chairman knowingly agrees. The chairman notes that the impending merger will finally give the director's company, Hwangsung Group, top status in Korea. The director, Philip Seo, suddenly asks Chairman Ji if he knows a man named Do-kwon Ju. Chairman Ji denies knowing the name, so Philip explains that Ju-in recently hired Do-kwon as her bodyguard. Philip continues, revealing rumors that Do-kwon is secretly a mob boss who took over a crime syndicate. Chuckle. Chairman Ji casually dismisses the notion, telling Philip he dismantled that syndicate long ago. Philip presses for confirmation, while the chairman internally acknowledges the syndicate is a past he wishes he could erase. Chairman Ji changes the subject, asking Philip why he's so interested in the new bodyguard. Spring, Philip rises to leave, cutting the meeting short and thanking the chairman for his time. Once Philip is gone, Chairman Ji calls for someone who is hiding to come out. The gray-haired driver emerges from a hidden door, and the chairman scolds him, saying a "thank you" isn't what he wants to hear. The chairman angrily reveals he only wrote Do-kwon's recommendation because he was hiding from an assassin, and is furious to learn he's now Ju-in's bodyguard. The chairman demands to know if Do-kwon is after something, but the driver explains he simply thought the mansion was a safe place for him. The furious chairman asks why Philip Seo was asking about Do-kwon, and the driver hesitates to answer. The driver explains that Do-kwon and Ms. Jian are getting along well, which is likely making her fiancé, Mr. Seo, feel threatened. The chairman orders him to get Do-kwon out of the mansion, but the driver reports that he has already left. The chairman listens, stunned, as his subordinate explains that Do-kwon and Ms. Jian sneaked out to visit the neighborhood where they both grew up. The chairman erupts in disbelief, asking if it's a joke, but the driver confirms it's the truth. Fuming, the chairman pinches the bridge of his nose and orders his subordinate to call Do-kwon immediately. Meanwhile, Ju-in and Do-kwon relax at a cafe, with him happily pointing out the chewy black pearls in her drink. Do-kwon takes a call, telling the person on the other end he was about to call them for a ride. Gasp! His cheerful expression vanishes as he hears who's on the line, and he stammers a nervous hello. On the phone, Chairman Ji coldly asks Do-kwon if he's trying to make Ju-in his. Slurp! Do-kwon panics, begging the chairman not to ask such a thing while she's present, as a clueless Ju-in asks who he's talking to. Wish! He frantically tells her it's nothing, and rushes outside to take the call in private. Outside the shop, the chairman bluntly repeats his question, asking if Do-kwon is pursuing the CEO of Ju-in Holdings. Blush. A flustered Do-kwon denies it, insisting he knows Ju-in has a fiancé and would never cross that line. The chairman warns Do-kwon that while he's capable of anything, This is a step too far. He offers to find Do-kwon a safe place abroad to lay low for a while. Do-kwon refuses the offer, prompting the chairman to demand why not. After asking for permission to be honest, which the chairman grants, Do-kwon prepares his answer. Shake! He admits he's scared of going abroad and can't speak English, which makes the chairman furious at the perceived insult. The chairman coldly states that from now on, he will not admit to knowing Do-kwon no matter who asks. Click. He ends the call by ordering Do-kwon to pretend they've never met, leaving Do-kwon staring at his phone in shock. Throw. The enraged chairman hurls his phone and orders his subordinate to disband the syndicate today, despite the man's protest. The chairman declares that all documents will be torched, the organization will be forgotten, and as of today, he has never met Do-kwon. The subordinate pledges his eternal loyalty to Do-kwon, but the chairman permits their friendship while officially severing all ties. The chairman acknowledges that Do-kwon once saved his life, making it a pity their paths must now diverge. His subordinate looks worried, admitting he can't predict Do-kwon's reaction, but will now go and relay the chairman's orders. Later, the subordinate sits with Do-kwon on a park bench and delivers the news, to which Do-kwon surprisingly replies, "That's great news," as Ju-in snaps photos nearby. Do-kwon asks with hopeful surprise if this means he no longer has to be a gang leader. The subordinate questions this, reminding Do-kwon of their plan to declare war on Chairman Ji if he didn't cooperate. Do-kwon explains he can't let the organization's members get hurt or killed in a fight against the chairman. Choke. The subordinate is moved to tears, touched by how deeply Do-kwon cares for his men. He promises that while the members will be moved, their hearts will remain loyal, ready to rush to Do-kwon's side. Hug. The subordinate emotionally embraces his boss, who awkwardly asks him to stop crying so they can go. Later, a cheerful Ju-in happily dances, saying today was fun and they should get malatang again sometime. Ju-in kindly helps a kneeling Do-kwon to his feet, thanking him with a smile. Doom. They are suddenly confronted by Shinha's terrifying aura, and a startled Ju-in stammers out her name. Ju-in immediately apologizes for sneaking out and insists she was the one who begged Do-kwon to come with her. Ignoring the apology, Shinha sternly tells Ju-in that she has something important to ask her. Ju-in and Do-kwon wait with tense anticipation, listening to Shinha's serious words. Ju-in asks what it is, only to be stunned when Shinha asks about her going on a date. Shinha confirms that Ju-in is scheduled to go on a date with her fiancé, Mr. Seo. A reluctant Ju-in questions if she really has to go, even though she understands it makes sense for an engaged couple. Shinha explains that Ju-in's public dates with Mr. Seo are crucial business events that always boost their company's stock prices. She warns that if they aren't seen together, it could start damaging rumors that would hurt both companies. Whisper. Ju-in leans in to secretly tell Shinha about her memory loss issues, but Shinha calmly replies that she already figured it out. Push! As Ju-in frets about making a mistake, Shinha reassures her, promising to give Mr. Seo a subtle, non-suspicious heads up. Through a glass door, a maid is seen helping a seated Ju-in get ready for the day. While her hair is being done, Ju-in silently worries if someone like her can really go on a date with a wealthy heir. She resolves to go, believing that she couldn't stand staying in the mansion if she caused more trouble by refusing. Now dressed in an elegant white coat dress, Ju-in presents herself and asks how she looks. Standing beside Shinha, Do-kwon sincerely tells Ms. Jiyeon that she looks beautiful. Do-kwon looks down, privately reminding himself that Ju-in has a fiancé to keep his own feelings in check. Ju-in looks away, resolving in her own mind that they must not cross the line. At a luxurious restaurant, a chef welcomes Ju-in and her fiancé, a man in a gray suit, and begins describing the courses. Her fiancé, Mr. Seo, smiles pleasantly as the chef details the first course of high-quality shark fin and caviar. Ju-in's expression is unimpressed as the chef announces the next course will be escargot. Ick. A close-up on the plate of escargot reveals Ju-in's internal reaction of pure disgust at the snails. She's equally disgusted by the next course of wagyu and foie gras, thinking, goose liver? Ew, ew, ew. Mr. Seo notices her expression, confused since he picked her favorite dishes, but she frantically insists everything is fine. Seeing through her act, Mr. Seo gently encourages her to be honest, and the chef offers to prepare anything she'd prefer. When Ju-in asks about her options, Mr. Seo warmly tells her the chef can make anything she desires. In that case, Ju-in looks up with hopeful eyes and asks if the chef can possibly make malatang. Her request sends the high-end chef into a panic, and he screams at his staff that it's an emergency to find a malatang chef. After her meal, Mr. Seo apologizes for barging into her parents' house, but she says it's fine since he didn't know. He reveals he discreetly inquired with a hospital director, who told him her memory issues could be from work-related stress. Understanding the high stakes for her company, he sincerely promises to keep her health problems a secret. Slide! He gently reaches for her hand across the table, promising they will get through this together. FWIP. Ju-in yanks her hand away in a panic, startling him by asking what he's doing. Oh my goodness. She frantically makes an excuse, exclaiming she just realized she forgot to wash her hands. Zoom, she dashes off to wash her hands, leaving a completely baffled Mr. Seo to stammer an all right. Doom alone in the bathroom, she stares at her distraught reflection, thinking she can't go through with this. She frets that the more time she spends with him, the more mistakes her memory loss will cause. Decided, she wipes her mouth and forms a new plan. Eat the food as fast as possible, and then leave immediately. Returning to her seat, she is surprised to hear from Mr. Seo that her malatang has already arrived. She sits back down at the table across from Mr. Seo, her bowl of malatang now served. Glare, thinking she'll finish in 10 seconds, she begins to furiously slurp her noodles. Her escape plan is interrupted when an attendant announces a 4-piece orchestra has arrived, summoned by Mr. Seo. An attendant announces the orchestra has arrived and greets Mr. Seo, who expresses his hope for another lovely performance. Gulp. A panicked Ju-in listens as Mr. Seo explains that tafel music, or light music during a meal, aids digestion. Ju-in forces a smile and asks how long the performance will last, and Mr. Seo reassures her it won't be more than an hour. Drop. Realizing her 10-second escape plan is ruined, Ju-in thinks, crap, as a meatball falls from her chopsticks. The string quartet begins to play, filling the luxurious restaurant with classical music. Clap, clap, clap. Mr. Seo applauds and requests a specific sonata, prolonging the performance. Bob, bob. While he's distracted, Ju-in furiously bobs her head trying to eat her noodles as fast as possible, startling Mr. Seo. Stand! Ju-in suddenly leaps to her feet with a loud clap, exclaiming how amazing the performance was to create a distraction. Whack! In her haste, she knocks over her entire bowl, sending red malatang soup flying as someone screams. A startled Mr. Seo looks on in shock as the accident unfolds beside him. Do-kwon, now in a suit, rushes to Ju-in's side with Mr. Seo and anxiously asks if she's alright. With a huge red stain on her dress, Ju-in says she wasn't burned but is sad she spilled her malatang, much to Do-kwon's relief. Do-kwon calls out to Ms. Jeon while kneeling beside her as Shin-ha rushes in, lamenting the nice dress now soaked in soup. Shin-ha leads Ju-in away to change, and Ju-in apologizes to Philip for the incident. Now in a blue dress, Ju-in frets that she ruined the date, but Shin-ha, holding the stained garment, tells her it's alright. Shin-ha reminds Ju-in to be careful during the rest of the schedule, surprising Ju-in, who thought the date was over after lunch. Shin-ha reveals their next stop is the art center run by Mr. Seo's mother, prompting a nervous Ju-in to ask if it's like a museum. Shin-ha explains that journalists disguised as paparazzi will be there to film them, leaving Ju-in to wonder why they're needed. Realizing the high stakes, Ju-in vows not to mess this up, and asks Shin-ha exactly what she needs to do. Shin-ha instructs her to simply hold Mr. Seo's hand, walk arm in arm, and smile as they stroll through the gallery. With the vision of Mr. Seo passionately kissing a swooning Ju-in, Shin-ha delivers the final, shocking instruction: you will kiss him.